as I promised many moons ago at this point, at this rate, here and now, I will indeed finish this book, Cancer Ward, by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, narrated to you by Carter Banks. We are on chapter 33. This chapter is called Happy Ending. That day it started to pour with rain. It poured all night as well. It was windy, too, and the wind grew colder and colder. By Thursday morning, it was a mixture of snow and rain, and those in the clinic who had predicted spring and unsealed the windows, Kostoglotov among them, felt as if slapped with a wet rag. On Thursday afternoon, the snow ceased, the rain stopped abruptly, and the wind fell. The weather became still, cold and gloomy. But at sunset, the western edge of the sky brightened, turning into a thin strip of gold. On Friday morning, Rusanov was due to be discharged. On that day, the sky opened out and was cloudless. The early sun began to dry, big puddles on the asphalt and on the earthen paths which cut across the lawns. Everyone felt that here was the true, irreversible beginning of spring. They cut through the paper, pasted over the cracks, knocked off the bolts, opened the inner portion of the storm windows. Bits of dry putty fell onto the floor for the orderlies to sweep up. Pavel Nikolaevich had never handed his things into store. He had taken no issue, clothing, and was so free to discharge himself any time during the day. Immediately after breakfast, his family came to fetch him with the car. And what a surprise! It was Lavrik driving the car. He got his driver's license the day before. School holidays had started the day before, too. There were parties for Lavrik and long walks for Micah. His younger children were in a state of great excitement. Kapatolina Matveyevna arrived with just two of them, leaving the older ones behind. Lavrik had persuaded his mother to let him take his friends for a drive afterwards. He had to show he could drive perfectly well, even without Yuri. Like a film played backward, the whole process was being repeated in reverse. Only this time, it was all so cheerful. Pavel Nikolaevich walked into the nurse's little room under the stairs in his pajamas and emerged in his gray suit. Lavrik was in an excellent mood. A handsome and sporty young man in a new blue suit. He would have looked quite grown up if he hadn't started fooling around with Micah in the lobby. He kept proudly swinging the car key on a little strap round his finger. "Have you locked all the doors?" Micah kept asking him. "Yes, all of them." "And you closed all the windows?" "Go and look for yourself." Micah ran off, tossing her dark curls, and returned right away. "Yes, it's all right," she said. Then immediately she pretended alarm again. "But did you lock the trunk?" "Go and look for yourself." Off she ran again. There were still men carrying jars of yellow liquid through the lobby toward the laboratory. There were other people, faceless and exhausted, sitting there waiting for a bed to become free. One of them was lying stretched out on a bench. Pavel Nikolaevich watched it all with a certain benevolent condescension. He proved himself a man of courage, stronger than circumstances. Lavrik carried his father's suitcase. With her beige spring coat and mane of copper-colored hair, Kappa seemed to have grown younger with happiness. She dismissed the nurse with a nod, took her husband's arm, and walked alongside him. Micah hung on to her father's other arm. "Have you seen her new hood? Just look at it, brand new. It has stripes. Pasha, Pasha! Someone called from behind. They turned round. Chaley was emerging from the surgical corridor. He looked in good spirits as well, not in the least sallow. The only sign that he was a patient was his hospital pajamas and slippers. Pavel Nikolaevich shook his hand cheerfully. "Look, Kappa," he said. "This is our hero from the hospital front line. I want to introduce you. They scooped out his stomach, and all he does is smile." When he was introduced to Kapitolina Matveyevna, Chaley gracefully clicked his heels and inclined his head to one side, half in play and partly as a mark of respect. "Pasha, your telephone number. Give me your telephone number." Chaley accosted him. Pavel Nikolaevich pretended he'd got stuck in the doorway and hadn't heard the question. Chaley was a good fellow, but they moved in different circles. He had different ideas, and it might not be quite respectable to get involved with him. He tried to think up a way of refusing politely. They came out onto the porch, and at once Chaley caught sight of Moskvich. There's an asterisk next to Moskvich. Says a small poplar make of a Russian automobile. So I guess it's like a car. Some kind of Russian car that is small. Lavrik had turned it round, ready to move off. Chaley cast his eye over it. He did not ask. He did not ask. He did not ask, "Is it yours?" All he said was, "How many on the clock?" "Just under 15,000. "Why are the tires so worn, then?" "Oh, you know. We just happened to get a bad set. It's the way these workers make them." "Shall I get you some?" "Can you? Maxim, that's wonderful." "You bet your life I can. No trouble at all. Write down your phone number. Go on." He poked a finger at Rusanov's chest. "As soon as I'm discharged, I guarantee you'll have them in a week." There was no need to think up an excuse now. Pavel Nikolaevich tore a page out of his notebook and wrote down his office and home telephone numbers. "Good. That's settled then. I'll give you a call," said Maxim in farewell. Micah leaped into the front seat. The parents got into the back. "We'll be friends," Maxim gave them this parting encouragement. The doors slammed shut. "We'll have a good time," shouted Maxim, holding up his fist in a red front salute. I'm assuming that means the red salute, which is very racist and Nazi-esque. So they say. "Well, what do I do now?" said Lavrik to Micah. He was giving her a test. "Turn on the ignition?" "No. First you check that it's in neutral." Micah's answer came out pat. They drove off, splashing through the occasional puddle, and turned the corner of the orthopedic wing. There, in a gray dressing gown and boots, a long, lanky patient was walking down the middle of the asphalt road, enjoying an unhurried stroll. "Blow your horn at him! Give him a good toot!" said Pavel Nikolaevich as soon as he noticed him. Lavrik gave a short, loud burst. The lanky fellow moved briskly to one side and looked round. Lavrik stepped on the gas and drove past, missing him by about 10 centimeters. "I call him Bone Chewer, a really unpleasant, envious type. If only you knew him. You saw him, Kappa, didn't you? Why does it surprise you, Pasik?" Kappa sighed. "You'll find envy wherever there's good fortune. There are always people who will envy you if you're happy." "He's a class enemy," Rusanov grumbled. "If circumstances were different, I ought to have run over him then. Why did you tell me to blow the horn?" Lavrik laughed, turning round for a moment. "Don't you dare turn around when you're driving," cried Kapitolina Matveyevna in terror. And it was true. The car had swerved. Don't you dare turn round, repeated Micah, with a ringing laugh. But I can, can't I, Mama? She turned her head back to look at them, first to the left, then to the right. I'll stop him taking his girls for a drive, that'll teach him, said Kapitalina Matveyevna. As they drove out of the medical center, Kappa wound down the window and threw a piece of trash out on the road. Damn the place. I hope we never come back, she said. Don't anyone turn round. Kostoglotov flung a long stream of obscenities at them as they drove away, carrying on to his heart's content. The conclusion he had come to was that they were right. He must get himself discharged in the morning. It would be inconvenient to leave in the middle of the day when everyone was discharged. It would be impossible to get anything done outside. They had promised him his discharge tomorrow. It was an agreeable sunny day and growing hotter. Everything was drying up quickly, absorbing the heat. In Ushterek, too, they were doubtless digging their gardens and cleaning the irrigation ditches. He strolled along, letting his thoughts wander. Gotta say, that was a great transition. Like this group, this family that comes and picks up, I think it was Kapitalina Matveyevna and her crew, and they're driving and they're talking shit about this other guy. Bone Chewer. They almost hit him as a joke, and they joke about coming back, and then all of a sudden it just kind of flashes to Kostoglotov, who I assume is there on the road. I can picture this being a movie. I think it would be really good. Anyway, back to the book. How lucky he was. Last winter, during fierce frost, he had left Ushterek to go away and die. Now he'd be back there at the height of spring. He'd be able to plant his little garden. It was wonderful, sticking something in the ground and watching it come up. Except that the gardens were worked in couples, and he was on his own. He strolled on a bit further, and then had an idea. He'd go and see Mita. Some time had passed since the day she had stopped him and kept telling him there were no vacancies in the clinic. They had known each other well for some time now. Mita was sitting in her windowless den under the stairs. The only light came from the electric bulb. His lungs and eyes found it intolerable after walking in the grounds. Mita was stacking and restacking some record cards. Kostoglotov stooped to squeeze through the low door. Mita, he said. I have a favor to ask, something important. Mita lifted her long, sharply chiseled face. She had always had an ill-proportioned face. Ever since she was born, for 40 years, no man had been attracted enough to kiss it or stroke it with his hand. The tenderness which might have enlivened it had never had a chance to express itself. Mita had become a pack horse. What is it? She asked him. They're discharging me tomorrow. I'm very glad for you. Mita was a kind woman. It was only at first glance she seemed grumpy. But it's not about that. There are things I must do in town tomorrow before I leave in the evening. But they always bring our clothes so late in the day from the store. Couldn't we do it this way? Mitoshka, get my things out today? Hide them away somewhere, and I'll come down at crack of dawn, change into them, and leave? Ooh, I see what he's trying to do here. He's trying to set up a reason to be going to her place tonight to collect his clothes. This is going to be a happy ending, I think. Oh no, that's impossible, really, said Mita. If Nismutin finds out, he won't find out. He won't find out. I know it's against the rules, but You know, Mitoshka. You're only alive when you're breaking the rules. But what if they decide not to discharge you tomorrow? It's definite. Vera Kornelyevna said so. But I must have it from her. All right, I'll go and see her about it now. Have you heard the news? No, what news? They say we're all going to be released by end of the year. They're positive. Her unattractive face became prettier as she talked about the rumor she had heard. What do you mean, we? There's an asterisk next to we. And it says Mita is also an exile because she is of German origin, though in a different category from Kostoglotov, exiled for a personal reason. You mean you? No, it'll mean us and you. Don't you believe it? She waited apprehensively to hear his opinion. Oleg scratched his head and made a face. He closed one eye completely. It's possible, he said. I mean, it isn't out of the question, only I've lived through so many of these false alarms. My ears can't take any more. But this time it's definite. They say it's absolutely definite. She wanted so much to believe it. It was impossible to say no to her. Oleg put his top lip over his lower and thought for a moment. Of course there was something in the wind. The Supreme Court had been sacked, but it was all happening too slowly. Nothing more had happened for a month. He had become skeptical again. History moves too slowly for our lives or our hearts. Well, God willing, he said, mostly for her benefit. What will you do then? Will you leave here? I don't know, Mita declared faintly, almost voicelessly. Her big fingernails spread over the well-thumbed cards. She had had enough of them. You are from around Salsk, aren't you? Yes. Well, do you think things are any better there? It means freedom, she whispered. Or, more likely, she still counted on finding a husband in her own part of the world. Oleg set off to find Vera Kornelyevna. At first he did not succeed. They told him she was in the X-ray room. Then, that she was with the surgeons. In the end, he spotted her walking down the corridor with Lev Leonidovich. He hurried to catch them up. Vera Kornelyevna, have you a spare moment? It was nice being able to address her, and her alone. He noticed that the voice he used for her wasn't the voice he used for others. She turned round. One could tell what a busy day it had been for her, from the posture of her hands, the preoccupied look on her face, and the droop of her body. But she was always attentive toward everyone. She stopped. Yes. She didn't add Kostoglotov. She only called him this when speaking in the third person to the doctors or the nurses, never when addressing him directly. Vera Kornelyevna, I've something very important to ask you. Can you tell Mita I'm definitely being discharged tomorrow? Why? It's essential, you see. I have to leave tomorrow evening, and that means... All right, Lev, you go on ahead. I'll be with you in a minute. Lev Leonidovich went on, his body stooping and rocking from side to side, his hands jammed into the front pocket of his white coat, his back straining at the tapes. Come into my office, Vera Kornelyevna said to Oleg. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe they're going to do something. I don't know. Oleg, you old dog. She went ahead of him. She was light in her joints. She led him into the X-ray room, the one where he had had that long argument with Dontsova. She sat down at the same She went ahead of him. She was light in her joints. She led him into the X-ray room, the one where he had had that long argument with Dontsova. She sat down at the same badly planed table and motioned him to sit too. But he remained standing. There was no one else in the room. The sunlight flowed in, a slanting golden column of dancing specks, reflecting off the nickel-plated parts of the apparatus. It was so cheerful and bright, you felt like shutting your eyes. But what if I don't have time to discharge you tomorrow? The epicrisis has to be written, you know. He couldn't tell whether she was being official or just teasing him. What, did you say? The epicrisis. That's a resume of the whole treatment. You can't be discharged until the epicrisis is ready. What a massive work there was, piled on those frail shoulders. Everywhere, there were people calling her and waiting for her. Once again, he had disturbed her. She still had the epicrisis to write. But there she sat, literally glowing. It wasn't just her. It wasn't just the kind, tender look she gave him. There was a sort of bright, reflected light surrounding her and radiating from her figure. What about you? Do you want to leave immediately then? It's not what I want to do that counts. I'd be happy to stay on, but there's nowhere for me to spend the night. I don't want to spend another at the railway station. Yes, of course. They won't let you into the hotel, she said, nodding her head. She frowned. What a nuisance. That old orderly who puts patients up at her apartment is absent from work. At the moment on sick leave. What can we do about it? She drew the words out, running her upper lip along her lower teeth and doodling what looked like two overlapping little rings on the paper in front of her. You know, there's no reason at all why you shouldn't stay at my place. What was that? Had she really said that? He couldn't have heard properly. Should he ask her to repeat it? Her cheeks were noticeably blushing, and she was avoiding his eyes just as she was before. She had said it quite simply, as though his doctor's apartment. Tomorrow's rather an unusual day for me, she went on. I'll only be 2 hours in the clinic during the morning, and the rest of the day I'll be at home. Then after 4 o'clock, I'm going out again. I can quite easily spend the night with friends. Then she did look at him. Her cheeks were aglow, but her eyes were bright and innocent. Had he understood her properly? Was he worthy of what was being offered? Oleg simply couldn't understand. How could one possibly understand a woman when she said something like that? It might be earth-shaking, or it might be much less than that. But he didn't think. There was no time for thinking. There was an aura of nobility about her as she waited. Thank you very much, she blurted out. Of course. That's wonderful. Right fucking answer, Oleg. Oh, man, I was afraid for you for a second, dude. Oleg simply couldn't understand. How could one possibly understand a woman when she said something like that? The truth is you can't. You just have to roll with it. It might be earth-shaking, or it might be much less than that. But he didn't think. There was no time for thinking. There was an aura of nobility about her as she waited. Thank you very much, he blurted out. Of course. That's wonderful. He had completely forgotten what he had been told 100 years ago as a child about how to behave properly and answer politely. That's splendid. But I don't want to deprive you of your... I wouldn't want to do that. Don't let that worry you, said Vega, with a reassuring smile. And if you have to stay 2 or 3 days, we'll think of some way of arranging it. Are you sorry to be leaving town? Yes, of course, I'm sorry. But there's one other thing. If I stay, you'll have to date my discharge certificate the day after tomorrow, not tomorrow. Otherwise, the Kommandatura will want to know why I didn't leave. They might put me back in prison. That's all right, we'll do shady things all round. So I'm to tell Mita today to discharge you tomorrow, and to write the day after tomorrow on your certificate? What a complicated man you are! But her eyes weren't in the least troubled by the complications. They were laughing. It's not me that's complicated, Vera Kornelyevna. It's the system. And I have to have 2 certificates, not one like everyone else. Why? The Kommandatura will take one to justify my travel authorization. I'll keep the other one. He'd do his best not to give the Kommandatura their copy. He'd shout and swear it was the only one he had. A spare copy would do him no harm. After all, he had suffered from so long. After all, he had suffered from so long at the hospital for the sake of the certificate, hadn't he? I think that's a misspelling. I think that he meant to say for. After all, he had suffered for so long at the hospital for the sake of the certificate, hadn't he? Then you'll need a 3rd copy for the railway station, she said. She jotted a few words down on a slip of paper. This is my address. Shall I tell you how to get there? I'll find it, Vera Kornelyevna. Was she being serious? Was she truly inviting him? And she took a few rectangular slips of paper and attached them to the one with her address. Here are prescriptions Ludmila Afanasyeevna mentioned. There are 3 copies, so you can draw the supply little by little. The prescriptions? Those prescriptions? She mentioned them as if they were some small insignificant supplement to her address. In 2 months of treatment, she had contrived not to mention the subject once. That's what we call tact. She stood up. She was on her way to the door. She had to get to work. Lyova was waiting for her. And suddenly, in the scattered fan of light, which filled the whole room, he saw her, as if for the first time. She was radiant and slender at the waist. She was so understanding, she was a friend. He needed her so badly. It was as if he had never seen her before. It made him feel cheerful. He wanted to be frank. He asked, Vera Kornelyevna, why were you angry with me for such a long time? Oh my God. We're about to get the answer that we've been wanting. So if you're just listening now, and you can skip this part, we're on like page 470, but like he had a serious tryst with this doctor, and like things were looking really good for them to be like a couple or like, you know, meant to be together or something. But then all of a sudden out of nowhere, she like changed her mind about him. And like she stopped talking to him, stopped acknowledging him in the hallways. At one point, she was even like not giving him treatments for his cancer because it was like reverse hormone therapy. They were making his penis not work. And then she started giving them to him again because, I don't know, we're about to find out. But he asks her this genuine question that we've all wanted to know. She goes, Vera Kornelyevna, why were you so angry with me for such a long time? She looked at him from the light that surrounded her. She smiled, somehow a wise sort of smile. You mean, you can't think of anything you've done wrong? No, nothing at all. Not a thing. Try to remember. I can't think of anything. At least give me a hint. I have to go. I think I know what it is. He didn't kiss her more. Or he didn't take a chance that maybe he could have. I don't know. It's been a long time. Anyway, back to the book. I have to go. Oh, because they're not going to tell us. She had the key in her hand. She'd have to lock the door and leave. It had been so wonderful being with her. If only it could have gone on all day. She looked very small as she walked down the corridor. He stood there and watched her go. Immediately, he went out for another stroll. Spring had broken through, and he couldn't get enough fresh air. He walked about aimlessly for 2 hours, breathing his fill of air and warmth. Already he felt sorry at the thought of leaving this garden where he'd been a prisoner. It was sad he wouldn't be here when the Japanese acacias bloomed and the first late leaves of the oak unfolded. For some reason he felt no nausea today, no weakness either. He would have liked to do some digging in his garden. There was something he wanted, something, but he couldn't think of what. He noticed his thumb moving of its own accord toward his index finger, craving for a cigarette, but no. However often he had dreamed of smoking, he had given it up, and that was that. He'd had enough of walking, so he went to see Mita. Mita was a splendid woman. His knapsack had already been removed from the store and hidden in the bathroom. The key to the bathroom would be held by the old orderly who came on duty in the evening before clinic to get all his certificates. His discharge from the hospital seemed to be gradually becoming irreversible. He climbed the staircase. It wasn't the last time, but nearly the last time he would do so. At the top of the stairs he met Zoya. "Well, how are things, Oleg?" Zoya asked unaffectedly. Her manner was so amazingly unforced, quite natural, in fact. It was as though nothing had ever happened between them. No tender nicknames, no dance from the tramp, no oxygen balloons. Now I'm confused. Has this guy been playing everyone in this? Because, for a second I thought, we're still with Kostoglotov here, right? No dance from the tramp, no oxygen balloons. No, yeah, that was... I think that was chapter, maybe 17 or 18. No oxygen balloons, and she could be right. Why should they keep coming back to it the whole time? Why remember? Why sulk? One night when she'd been on duty, he'd gone to sleep instead of going out and hanging around her. Another evening, she'd come up to his bed with the syringe, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. He turned around and let her inject him. Everything that had grown up between them, taut and strained like the oxygen balloon they had once carried together, had suddenly subsided, little by little, until there was nothing. All that remained was her friendly greeting. "Well, how are things, Oleg?" All right, I take back what I said about the previous girl. This is the girl that I was talking about. It's Zoya. Sorry, this book has taken me forever to complete, and I am forgetting the characters. He leaned forward over a chair, bracing himself with his long arms. His black forelock hung down. "White corpuscle count, 2,800, he said. "No x-rays since yesterday. Tomorrow I'm being discharged." "Tomorrow?" she said, fluttering her golden eyelashes. "Well, good luck. Congratulations." "What is there for you to congratulate me on?" "You ungrateful thing," said Zoya, shaking her head. "Try and remember your first day here." out on the landing. You didn't think you were going to last more than a week, did you? That was also true. No, really, she was a fine girl. Zoya, cheerful, hard-working, sincere. She said what she thought. Once they had got rid of the awkwardness between them, this feeling they had deceived each other and begun again with a clean slate, was there any reason why they shouldn't be friends? There, you see, he smiled. There, you see. She smiled. She didn't remind him about the Malinette. So there it was. 4 times a week, she would come to the clinic on duty. She would stick her nose in her textbook. Occasionally, she'd do embroidery. Back in town, she'd go to dances, and afterwards stand in the shadows with some man. One couldn't be angry with her for being 22 years old and healthy. Healthy to the last cell, to the last drop of blood. Good luck, he said, without resentment. He'd already moved on, when suddenly in her old simple and easy manner, she called after him, "Hey, Oleg!" Well, I just got a whole lot of answers. He turned around. "Do you have anywhere to spend the night?" This dude! Write down my address. What? Her too? This guy has been 3 different girls. No wonder I'm confused, because I'm not confused. He actually is playing 3 different chicks. I also know why she, her little bit about how she had rationalized herself. She'd reasoned herself, though ever unreasonably, out of, like, being with him because she didn't think it would work. And now anyway, so this is his third offer of place to stay. She says, "Do you have anywhere to spend the night? Write down my address." What? Her too? Oleg looked at her in bafflement. It was beyond his powers of comprehension. "It's very convenient, just by the trolley car stop. It's just the 2 of us, Grandma and me, but we have 2 rooms." "Thank you very much," he said in confusion, taking the little piece of paper. "But I hardly think, well, we'll see how things go." "Who knows?" she smiled. Nice, Oleg, playing the hard-to-get, not too anxious and eager one. It's easier to find your way in the taiga forest than to know where you are with a woman. He went on a couple of steps and saw Sibgotov lying miserably on his back, on the hard plank bed in his musty corner of the landing. Even today's raging sun only reached him as a feeble reflection of a reflection. He was gazing upward, up at the ceiling. He'd grown thin these last 2 months. Kostoglotov sat down beside him on the edge of the plank bed. "Sharaf, there are rumors going about that all the exiles are to be released. Both groups, specials and administratives." Sharaf didn't turn his head toward Oleg, only his eyes. It was as if he had taken in nothing except the sound of Oleg's voice. "Did you hear? It means both you and me. They're absolutely definite." Sibgotov didn't seem to understand. "Don't you believe it? Will you be going home?" Sibgotov turned his eyes back to the ceiling. His lips parted indifferently. "It's not much good to me. It ought to have happened earlier." Oleg placed a hand on one of his. The hand he took was laid across Sibgotov's chest, as though he were a corpse. Nelia rushed briskly past them into the ward. "Any dishes left in here?" she shouted. Then she turned round to him. "Hey, you, hairy top! Why aren't you eating your lunch? Hurry up! I have to collect the dishes. Why should I wait for you?" Incredible! Kostoglotov had missed his lunch and hadn't even noticed. His head must be in a whirl. There was only one thing he didn't understand. Why? What have the dishes got to do with you? He asked Nelia. "What do you mean?" "I'm food orderly now. I hand round the meals," Nelia announced proudly. "Look at my coat. Isn't it clean?" Oleg got up and went off to eat his last hospital lunch. Insidiously, invisibly, soundlessly, the X-ray had burned out his appetite. But the prisoner's code made it impossible for him to leave anything on the plate. Come on, hurry up," Nelia commanded. It wasn't just her new coat. She had her hair curled differently as well. "Well, look at you now," said Kostoglotov, in amazement. "Well, I mean to say, what a fool I was crawling around the floor for $3.50 a month. What a job. No free grub either." Wow. And that ends chapter 33. Well, that chapter was called A Happy Ending. We learned a whole lot in that chapter. All these escapades that Oleg has had. Wow, it's been quite the journey. I'm kind of bummed we're reaching the end of this book. The next chapter is called And One a Bit Less Happy, which I'm really not looking forward to reading that one. We got 33, A Happy Ending, and then 34, And One a Bit Less Happy. What are they going to do, kill somebody? Oleg's going to get dumped by all three of the dates? I don't know. Find out next week on the Carter Banks Hour. And for now, stay safe and good night.